success. Beyond English success.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our podcast. I'm Katie, and as always, I'm so happy you're here with us today.
And I'm David. Today's episode is a special one. We're going to talk about something really important. You are not alone. Whether you're facing challenges, feeling a bit lost, or going through tough times, it's a reminder that no one has to go through it alone. There are always people around us who care.
That's right, David. Sometimes life is difficult and we feel isolated. But it's so important to remember that many people around the world are feeling the same way. Today we'll share our personal stories and tips to reassure you that you are never alone. Let me start with my story. A few years ago, I went through a tough time. I had just moved to a new city for a job, and I didn't know anyone. I thought I could handle it because I had always been independent, but soon the loneliness hit me. I missed my friends and family. I felt like I had no one to talk to.
That must have been really hard, Katie. How did you get through it?
At first, I kept it all to myself. I thought, no one understands what I'm going through. But after a few weeks, I realized I couldn't stay like that. I decided to call my best friend from back home. We talked for hours. It was such a relief to hear a familiar voice and just share how I felt. That phone call reminded me that even though I was in a new place, I wasn't truly alone. My friends and family were still there for me, even if we were miles apart.
That's such a great example. Even though we may feel alone sometimes, there are always people who care about us, whether they're nearby or far away. And reaching out to someone can make all the difference.
Exactly. After that, I started to feel more positive. I joined a local book club and even made some new friends at work. It wasn't easy at first, but slowly I started to feel more connected.
I love that story, Katie. It reminds me of a time in my life when I also felt alone. This was a few years ago when I started learning a new skill, coding. I always thought learning something new would be exciting, but I wasn't prepared for how difficult it would be.
Learning new things can be really challenging, especially when you're doing it by yourself. What happened?
Well, I had always been interested in technology, so I decided to take an online coding course. At first, I was really excited, but after a few weeks, I started to struggle. I couldn't understand some of the concepts, and I kept making mistakes. I felt frustrated, and I started thinking, maybe I'm not smart enough to do this. I felt completely alone because I didn't know anyone else who was learning to code.
That sounds tough. It's easy to feel discouraged when you're struggling with something new, especially when you're doing it alone.
Exactly. But then I realized something. I didn't have to do it alone. I joined an online forum where people from all over the world were learning to code, just like me. I posted my questions, and to my surprise, people were really supportive. They shared tips, helped me understand difficult topics, and even encouraged me when I felt like giving up.
That's amazing. Sometimes, finding a community or group of people with similar goals can make a huge difference.
Yes, it completely changed my experience. Knowing that others were going through the same challenges made me feel less alone. I realized that I wasn't the only one struggling, and it was okay to ask for help. Now, I'm much more confident in my coding skills, and I even help others in the same forum.
That's such an inspiring story, David. It shows that even when we feel alone, there are always ways to connect with others and find support. Let's take a moment to think about why it's so important to remember that we're not alone, especially when life gets hard. Sometimes we feel like we're the only ones dealing with a particular problem. But in reality, many people are going through similar experiences.
Absolutely. And this idea can apply to many areas of our lives, whether it's work, relationships, or even personal growth. I remember a time when I had a disagreement with a close friend. We were both upset, and I thought, maybe it's easier to just avoid talking about it. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't help.
Those conversations can be so difficult, right?
Yes, they can. But I decided to talk to my friend, even though it was uncomfortable. We sat down and both of us shared our feelings. It wasn't easy, but by the end of the conversation, we understood each other better, and our friendship became stronger because of it.
That's such a great example of how facing difficult situations can actually bring us closer to others. It's not always easy, but it's worth it.
Now that we've shared our stories, let's talk about some tips for anyone who might be feeling alone right now. Remember, you are not alone, and there are things you can do to feel more connected.
Tip number 1. Reach out to someone you trust. Whether it's a friend, family member, or even a co-worker, talking about how you feel can help lighten the emotional load.
Tip number 2. Find a community. It could be an online group, a local club, or even a hobby group. Connecting with people who share your interests can make you feel less isolated.
Tip number 3. Take small steps. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to start small. Send a message, join a group, or even just take a walk outside. Sometimes, small actions can lead to bigger changes.
Tip number 4. Remember that it's okay to ask for help. Whether you're struggling with something emotional or practical, asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong.
Those are great tips, David. It's all about reminding ourselves that we don't have to do everything on our own. Support is always available around us, and all we need to do is reach out.
We hope today's episode has been a reminder that no matter what you're going through, you are not alone. There's always someone who cares, and there are always ways to connect with others.
That's right. If you're feeling alone, remember to reach out, find your community, and take small steps to connect. And if you ever need a reminder, you can always come back and listen to this episode.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found our stories meaningful, and we'd love to hear your own stories about how you overcame loneliness or found support. You can share them with us on social media or through email.
Take care, everyone, and remember, you are never truly alone. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay connected and keep shining.
Now, we're going to learn some vocabulary and expressions to help you understand the story better. Let's get started.
Isolated. Isolated. Meaning: separated from others or alone. For example, after moving to a new city, she felt isolated for months. Reassure. Reassure. Meaning: to remove doubts, fears, or comfort someone. For example, the teacher reassured the students that they would do well. Independent. Independent. Meaning: not relying on others or self-sufficient. For example, she values her independent lifestyle and makes her own decisions. Relief. Relief. Meaning: a feeling of comfort after a difficult situation. For example, he felt a sense of relief when the exam was finally over. Discouraged. Discouraged. Meaning, feeling less confident or hopeful. For example, she felt discouraged after receiving feedback on her project. Inspiring. Inspiring. Meaning, motivating or causing someone to take action. For example, the speaker shared an inspiring story that moved everyone. Deal with. Deal with. Meaning, to manage or handle a situation. For example, he had to deal with several challenges during the project. Lighten the emotional load. Lighten the emotional load. Meaning, to reduce emotional stress or burden. For example, talking to a friend helped lighten the emotional load she felt. Overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. Meaning, feeling overpowered by thoughts or emotions. For example, she felt overwhelmed with all the responsibilities at work. Available. Available. Meaning, accessible or ready for use. For example, the resources are available to help students succeed.
Great job today. Keep up the excellent work. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more exciting lessons. Happy learning, and I'll see you next time.